Hello, everyone. We are back to the mic again. It's been another week here in, what can we say, in this world system where we live in. It is the Sabbath today, August 19, 2023. I'm joined with Michael. Yes, Michael, 19.
Which is not the average age of the combat soldier in Vietnam. That's a lie. He was, I think it was 23. But 19 is the number of the sun. With the corona, 19.
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah. What a coincidence.
The world is full of coincidences. Hi, Brett, and hello, dear listeners.
Hi, Michael.
Welcome.
Yeah, it's been a busy week, I'm sure, for you, and a busy week for me. But it feels good to be getting back to the script. And I know we've done quite a few of these already, Michael, on Bruce Lee.
I hope that people will not get whatever, but I'm eager to continue, so that I think that it's now the 22nd session. This is session 127, session 22 already on Bruce Lee. I think it will be something more than 30 sessions overall, and there are so many links coming together now. You will see why it takes 30 sessions, and then you get the picture once and for all. We will not do any Satanic Media Agenda after that. At least it's not planned, so that we can do some other service to God on the Holy Sabbath, which is today and which is called by the pagan world like the day of Saturn, Saturday.
Yeah,
this
that's right.
Session is called Poison Part 2. Let's get it on. You can't imagine how much work it is to have a superficial news agency article somewhere that Bruce Lee has died of an allergic reaction, of an idiosyncratic reaction to one aspirin, until that you see all the background in it, and it's not supposed that you see it on the mass media. So let's get it on. We are getting in full swing today. But we have to do a little bit of a background. In the 1971 interview with Ted Thomas, which is 50 minutes and extremely interested, Bruce Lee said, well, in the martial arts you start out with hypothesis, but now it has become the gospel truth. And of course, that you can apply on every subject. Yeah, sometimes you have to have an idea or hypothesis, how things actually are working out, and later on they are becoming gospel truths because media is repetitive, and so that when you have heard the lie 1,000 times, you believe that it's the truth. You believe that there is an evolution theory is correct, maybe because you have heard it 1,000 times, you have believed that it was a big bang. You believe in everything that the mass media is putting out in front of you. Trump is the world's president of all times, and you believe everything in the media. And we do not believe anything. We know that the mass media has been steered, at least since the 19th century, with secret treaties in Verona and Vichy and all the stuff. So let's get to the nitty-gritty of the session. It's called Poison Part 2. Not by accident, but we have to have a background. I don't want to be rude to any fan, but you have to face the fact that the Bible forbids any preaching or any glorifying or what else to any idols. Yeah, so people here are fans and say there will never be another Bruce Lee. He was born to triumph, born to be the best, only the good die young, and these people are, Bruce Lee is my idol. These are just examples that you have to approach things from a different perspective. You have to approach them neutrally, and then you look behind all the stuff. This world is coming to an end, I have to tell you. We do not know if it is in 2 years or in 200 years, but this world will come to an end. You see that everywhere things are getting more aggressive. By the way, for just a simple example of cars, Bentley versus Mercedes-Benz. Yeah, look at the shape of the cars. Look at the face of the cars. Things are getting more sharper. Things are getting more aggressive. Let's get back to the dragon. The nickname of Bruce Lee was the Little Dragon because his birth name was Li Yunfan. And he was born on the day of the dragon and the hour of the dragon according to Chinese mythology or Chinese astrology. But the first mentioning of a so-called dragon actually could not be from China, but from an older ancestry, from an older mythology from Babylon, actually, and this is Muhushu, a serpentine draconic monster from ancient Mesopotamian mythology with the body and the neck of a snake. That's why I always would suggest people, you have to go back to the roots. And the roots are telling us that the dragon, so-called, is derived from the form of a snake. So a flying serpent, for example. The forelegs of a lion, the hind legs of a bird. Here it is shown as he appeared in the Ishtar gate from the city of Babylon, which has been mentioned in the Bible, for crying out loud. So it's not an invention of Chinese people. It's very telling that they use the dragon as that kind of a furious supreme animal. That tells a lot, because the dragon, if it is in a form of a snake, and if it is a part of that mysterial and mythology, then it is more or less, it is a representation of Satan, which we will learn from the Bible too. In Revelation 13, in verse 2, we read the following.
Yes, Revelation 13, verse 2, Michael?
Yes.
And I stood upon the sand of the sea, and I saw a beast rise up out of the sea, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and upon his horns 10 crowns, and upon his heads the name of blasphemy. And the beast which I saw was like unto a leopard. His feet were as the feet of a bear, his mouth as the mouth of a lion. And the dragon gave him his power and his seat and great authority. And when I saw one of his wounds, as it were wounded to death, and his deadly wound was healed, and all the world wondered after the beast, and they worshipped the beast, or worshipped the dragon which gave power unto the beast, and they worshipped the beast, saying, Who is like unto the beast? Who is able to make war with him?
So, even if you don't know the backgrounds of that verse in Revelation 13, you understand that it is the dragon who gave the power. So the dragon is the might, the power behind the beast system here. The dragon which gave power. And it has to do with blasphemy of at least the God mentioned in the Holy Bible. So you know that the dragon must be the counterfeit, the opposer, and Satan means the opponent or the adversary of God. So the dragon is at least extremely negative and has power over the beast. So then when the dragon is one symbolic animal of China, you know that China can't be a real Christian country. It worships the dragon as their mythology animal, and therefore it is against the God of the Bible. How hard can it be? And we're speaking about the beast system, about the Roman Empire, that is the last empire which is still intact because it is not ruled from Rome, but from the Vatican. And here you see on the right, you see a picture of Bruce Lee, Chuck Norris, and I think it was a Japanese photographer on the Way of the Dragon. You see that the dragon theme is always mythology and always been present with Bruce Lee, whose nickname was the Little Dragon. Or in biblical terms, I'm sorry, I really admire the skills of Mr. Lee, but we have to face the facts here. In biblical terms, he is Little Satan, or he is a servant of Satan with the Little Dragon. The Roman Empire, which was extremely dominant during the time of Jesus Christ's birth, that consists of part of Great Britain, Spain, Portugal, France, Germany, Belgium, Italy, of course, Switzerland, which was not in existence then, Yugoslavia, Greece, Turkey, part of Egypt and Syria and all the stuff. So it's a huge empire. And they were using the tactics of divide and conquer, bread and entertainment. So entertainment is every movie that you watch in the television, including Bruce Lee, of course. These Romans, they built the Colosseum for the giant colossus for the same underworld gladiator games, sometimes flooding the arena with a trident, a net, helmet of invisibility, 10 days feast of Saturn in December, sponsored by the treasury of Saturn. Roman soldiers wear the lion skin, a golden eagle conquering a snake, snake once again, holding a pine cone, that's the symbol of Nimrod, the evergreen, and lightning bolts, or the golden fleece and rooster comes. Golden fleece, it's an order, it's a hidden secret order also, which has been mentioned in a poem by no other than Jacqueline Kennedy for her husband. Oh, So this is the Roman Empire, which is a representation of the beast system. And the dragon gave his power to the beast system. So the dragon or Satan gave his power, or gives his power actually. This is Revelation, so there are some things to come in the near future. Gives it to the beast system, resides from Rome, but not from Rome itself, but from the city on the seven hills, which is called the Vatican, which has also, from the etymology, something to do with a snake. What a coincidence. And what a coincidence that Bruce Lee has then chosen that location of the Colosseum for the giant Colossus, and there was also a statue of Colossus, the Colossus of Rhodos, among the ancient seven world wonders, as the location of his death, to this duel to the death between Chuck Norris West and Bruce Lee East. Yeah, and this was the place where then lions were just killing Christians. Bread and circus. Yeah, that was Circus Maximus and Colosseum. There were several places, and Rome and the Pope and the Vatican, St. Peter's Square actually is built on the Circus Maximus, where there for the entertainment of the Roman let's say, pagan people, they have killed, slaughtered Christians. And after then, they could not get rid of all the Christians because they were singing and they were just awaiting Jesus Christ's return, and they did not fear death. Yeah, so they had to make a counterfeit religion, which is the Roman Catholic religion. Yeah? Rome is always the enemy of real Christianity. Rome was ruling Jerusalem. Roman soldiers have put a spear into Jesus Christ's body, and Romans were destroying the temple in 70 AD. So it is absolutely interesting when the opponent in the Bruce Lee movie of Way of the Dragon and Enter the Dragon, Bob Wall or Robert Wall, says, remembering Bruce Lee, you have to realize this Colosseum is thousands of years old. This is where lions ate Christians. And don't you think that when Bruce Lee was on a Catholic La Salle school and afterwards in Saint-Francois Xavier College, that he did not know about the Colosseum in Rome when he was Jesuitically trained? We have no fear of death because we know there is resurrection. We know that we believe in Jesus Christ. Therefore, we believe in eternal life as Jesus Christ as the only one's path to salvation. And we are not afraid of lions because there is one very prominent verse which is often recited, being prayed from soldiers in World War II. It is Psalm 91:11. That's only part of this. That can also be read by Brett if you would like to.
Oh, sure. Chapter 91, verse 11. For he shall give his angels charge over thee, to keep thee in all thy ways. They shall bear thee up in their hands, lest thou dash thy foot against a stone. Thou shalt tread upon the lion and adder, the young lion and the dragon shalt thou trample under feet. Because he hath set his love upon me, therefore I will deliver him. I will set him on high, because he hath known my name. He shall call upon me, and I will answer him. I will be with him in trouble. I will deliver him and honor him.
That's the so-called protection psalm from the Bible, Psalm 91, under the shadow of the Almighty, it's called. Or at least it's a beginning, and part of that is that the real believer, thou shalt tread upon the lion and adder, the young lion, and the dragon shalt thou trample under feet. So that is the same dragon which has been mentioned to give power to the beast. So there is no need to worry because they can only take your body, but you have to fear the one, which is the Almighty God, who can take your body and your everlasting soul. In Psalms chapter 74, we read in the verse 13 or verse 12, 13 and 14 maybe.
For God is my King of working salvation in the midst of the earth. Thou didst divide the sea by thy strength. Thou breakest the hands of the dragons in the waters. Thou breakest the heads of Leviathan in pieces, and gavest him to be meat to the people inhabiting the wilderness.
Yeah.
Thou did cleave. Yeah.
Oh, sorry. That's really enough. My point, Brett, is that you see that thou breakest the heads of the dragons in the water. So it is like a mythical animal, and the heads of
Leviathan. Yeah.
Leviathan also is a kind of a snake depicted as a dragon. So these two are exchangeable. What my point is that you don't have to be afraid of anything. It's just fear is the opposite of trust or of faith, actually. Yeah, so you don't have to fear. Remember when the apostle Peter was walking on the water, and then out of a sudden he had fear, and he did not have faith anymore, and he was just sinking. Yeah, and had fear of drowning. And Jesus Christ says that even the apostles, they had less of faith in them. So we don't have to fear a lion. We don't have to fear dragons. In whatever disguise, yeah, we have just to put our faith in God. And now the opposite is the dragon in the Chinese mythology. A dragon, says Wikipedia, is a large magical legendary creature that appears in the folklore of many cultures worldwide. Belief upon dragons or about dragons vary considerably through regions, but dragons in Western cultures since the High Middle Ages have often been depicted as winged, horned, and capable of breathing fire. Dragons in Eastern cultures are usually depicted as wingless, four-legged, serpentine creatures with above-average intelligence. Yeah, that's what I always say. The dragon is just a flying snake. Commonalities between dragons' traits are often a hybridization of feline, reptile, mammal, and avian features. Scholars believe vast extinct or migrating crocodiles bear the closest resemblance, especially when encountered in forested or swampy areas, and are most likely the template of modern Oriental dragon imagery. If you read the Bible, you know what the dragon is actually. The dragon is the same as the snake, but it is just in the higher region when it comes down to a spiritual animal. It's my understanding at the moment, at least. In Genesis 2:14, and I will read this now because it is just such a short one. It's been called that the Garden of Eden, so paradise as a common name, is, and the name of the third river is Hiddekel, that it is which goeth toward the east of Assyria, and the fourth river is Euphrates. And the Lord God took the man and put him into the Garden of Eden. So, if you would look it up on the world map, which we will do now, we see that the origin or the root of mankind when it comes down to a country must be Asia. So, the Garden of Eden then. And that's very interesting, because if you then compare that with the later chapter of Genesis chapter 4, when Cain rose up against Abel his brother and slew him, Brett, then you see in verse 9 that Cain was denying it. Yeah, so he lied against the Almighty God. He said, I know not, am I my brother's keeper, which is also a session of Miami Vice, and brother's keeper is also a code word in Freemasonry. But for the heck of it, it is just the first murderer is also the first liar. That's why in John 8:44, Jesus says that the Satan was a murderer from the beginning and the father of lies. And here Cain is lying to the Lord. And what was the penalty, Brett, in Genesis 4:16?
Read it. Genesis 4:16, and Cain went out from the presence of the Lord and dwelt in the land of Nod on the east of Eden.
Yeah, when you know that, I have forgotten to insert it here, that the Lord gave Cain a sign that no one shall hurt him. That's the sign of Cain, or the sign of Anu with the 8-pointed star, or eight crossed lines. The east of Eden. When we know that Eden was Euphrates river, that was one part of the paradise or the Garden of Eden, then it must be east of the country which where Euphrates is located, and this is Iraq. That's where the Gulf War 1991 started. Yeah. So, and that is the city of Baghdad. Oh, sorry, I mixed it up. And that is the capital city of Iraq is Baghdad, the capital city, located on the Tigris River. Yeah, Euphrates, Tigris, the capital city of Iraq. And everything that has been mentioned in a biblical context, but put out of context, so that people, when they have looked for a search phrase like Eden or like dragon, they will not get to the Bible. They will get to some of the movies, like in East of Eden from James Dean. So if you type in East of Eden, you most likely will be led to this entertainment purposes, so that you don't read the Bible, but you've been tossed around, mixed around. And that's why James Dean, for example, also was very famous, or getting famous, because they had biblical titles. They had East of Eden, they had Rebel Without a Cause, and they had Giants. Yeah, so they had biblical titles. And applying to Bruce Lee, he had always the dragon mentioned. So if somebody is into martial arts and is looking for a dragon, he won't come up with the Bible. He will just be shown entertainment films to deceive him, so that he does not see the reference of the Bible anymore. And so they will be rewarded by Satan. If it is James Dean, if it is Bruce Lee or anybody else. Yeah, so this is just don't we see here a method? Don't we see a pattern here? Because when you draw a line here from Baghdad, which is the capital city, where in the land of Iraq nowadays there was the Garden of Eden somewhere in that area, east of Eden. Yeah, where do you get when you are closest from east of Eden? When you travel east of Eden, Brad, you see that here on that picture.
You're getting to, looks like directly to Hong Kong?
Yeah. It's been said that he was getting to the land of northeast of Eden. So more east than Hong Kong or South Korea or China you cannot get until you've been stopped by the ocean. Mm-hmm. You can argue that, of course, later times before the Great Flood, there was one land mass. Yeah. But I just want to argue that China and Hong Kong is east of Eden. And I don't want to ridicule anybody who is Chinese. Yeah, I just want to tell you that Cain and the line of Cain, the people who are just against God and his commandments, yeah, they dwelt east of Eden, so east of Iraq. So it is highly possible that in this region there are not that many Christians. That's my point. So China and Hong Kong apparently are east of Eden. Yeah, and we are not covering the big flood which appeared later in a few chapters later in Genesis, when then everything was being drifting apart. So the worship of dragon or Satan has always been the worship of the dragon. And you see that you can mingle between the words of dragon, Satan, and serpent and the devil because it's all the same, right?
Revelation 12:9. And the great dragon was cast out, that old serpent called the devil and Satan, which deceiveth the whole world. He was cast out into the earth, and his angels were cast out with him.
Mm-hmm. But the dragon is central to Chinese culture. The dragon is being displayed as a creator and destroyer and controlling the elements, which there are 5. Mm-hmm. So he's been worshipped as a god, as a creator, the dragon. So what is it about the Chinese dragon that made it such a central figure in Chinese culture? Well, you see that the dragon is always supported by Bruce Lee, the way of the dragon. You can exchange it with the way of the devil, the way of the serpent, or the way of Satan. Because it's totally 180 degrees apart. It's the opposite of what the Bible is telling you what the dragon is. Yeah. So in China, the dragon is a creator and destroyer, extremely powerful, controlling the elements. And in the Bible, it's just simply an image of Satan. Some traditions claim that Chinese dragons conceal a large pearl in their throat or chin. And this pearl, wait for it, may represent the sun, the moon, or the earth. or something like a globe. Or maybe it's just a giant jewel, which is, it's just a material thing. Regardless, that the documentation says, the dragon's ability to hold the precious orb represents immense power. It's interesting, huh? It's been said that they interact with gods and immortals in the heavens. Yeah. And then you know that it's not a regular animal, but it's just a special animal with special powers. So-called messengers from the gods, if not a so-called god of himself.
Messages from the fallen ones.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, great.
Mm-hmm. In some stories, they can even speak. Oh, that would remind me of the Garden of Eden, when Satan was in disguise of a serpent, huh?
Correct.
The deep meanings attributed to the Chinese. The dragon appears as a nature deity known as the god of thunder, which is a song of Kiss, of course, and Gene Simmons always has been portraying a dragon here. Yeah, look at his shoes. You don't see them here, but one of the songs is God of Thunder. And this is here a cultural clash between West, represented by, even in that picture here, Chuck Norris, and East with Bruce Lee, The Way of the Dragon. And interesting that I said that before, I will say it again, that Chuck Norris is a evangelical Christ. I have not looked upon his belief, but it's been portrayed as an evangelical Christ. And Bruce Lee is an atheist, yeah. So the atheist wins against the so-called evangelical Christ in that Colosseum where Christians have been.
Oh, I have a comment, Michael.
Yeah.
I was looking at the word reprobate this morning, and what comes to mind is that the vessels that God creates that are reprobate, the ones that are an abomination to the faith, those are contrary to the ones that have faith, obviously. And the wicked are not plucked away, but the righteous are. So what we have is a world that's increasing in wickedness, not decreasing, not increasing in righteousness. No, the world only increases in wickedness. It's a one-way street. So when you become a believer, you walk a very thin line, and things can turn on a moment's notice. And yeah, I don't believe that the righteous are going to prevail in this world, because the Bible says so, Michael.
It's apparently that this world, every material belongings is been handed over to Satan to make the point of the accuser. So Jesus and his disciples, they had nothing, they had no worldly possessions, they had no money and all the stuff. They were just spreading the gospel, and that's it. And in this world, you see that Bruce Lee is the absolute opposite. He wants to have $10 million in his possession. So he's a representation of Satan. It's everywhere there Bruce Lee is destruction and death, and it's the way of the dragon. And he was the first Asian superstar. The dragon, like in the Bible, the dragon gave him his power and all about death and destruction, and the way of the dragon leads to Rome, of course, because the dragon gave power to the beast system, which is located in Rome. And this is here a place of worship of Colossus, the Colosseum, and also a place of destruction with many death and blood and all the stuff. So that's the location that Bruce Lee chose. Don't come up with the idea that he wants to have a spaghetti Eastern. He did it in the Colosseum, and that's the
Spaghetti Eastern, you said?
Yeah, that's one chapter of a book that I've read. It's called a spaghetti
That's
Eastern.
hilarious.
Yeah.
That's hilarious. Okay, all right. I like it.
Yeah. So, the dragon in Chinese culture. Consequences was great flooding brought on by the black dragon, a malevolent creature. So the black dragon is not positive. Yeah, and they did have so many powers. They have created everything, clouds, trees, flowers, grass, and animals of all kinds. Yeah, so this is a counter-biblical interpretation. So that is just Satan. That's nothing else. It's just a bunch of lies. In China, you have 5 elements. Sorry, there's a typo. Wood, fire, water, air, and earth. So the wood.
Say, I got a comment there on the serpent there, the last picture. You know, these things are so unnatural unless, very key point, that when you are under the influence of a drug, your mind is no longer the same as it was when you are not under the influence of a drug, such as opium, such as hashish. And you have this imagination in you that is not commonly known until you tap in to the powers of this mind-altering substance. So how on earth is it that these people come up with this? Okay, black dragon is going to be evil and the gold dragon is good luck or whatever. Yeah, it's paganism, plain and simple.
Gold
but
is
how do
also
they come
the
up
precious metal, so it is. I estimate that it has something to do with wealth and fortune. Therefore, because of the color gold, yeah, and maybe also spiritual.
Oh yeah, lucre.
This is just a
yeah,
quotation
Bible
here of a documentary. So, no.
Sure. No, it's interesting because you know, I've often thought, well, how on earth did they come up with this tradition of the dragon? You know.
Yeah, because it is just east of Eden. You see that it has something to do with paganism. Yeah, so it's interesting when you have to realize that they take the opposite as the truth. Yeah, so the dragon as the truth, and then Jesus Christ as not true, as untrue, as irrelevant, as not the Son of God, and all the stuff. So it's
right,
it's
because
totally
Jesus
mixed up.
Christ has no copyright, and
Yeah.
we know who the masters of that. You know, the masters of poison and of the poison cup, the leaden bullet. You know, these guys, they reside, you know, in the religious places, in all the high places. You know, Matthew 23 rings a bell, where Jesus rebuked the scribes and the Pharisees. Well, we see this world rewarding the scribes and the Pharisees because they give us religious freedom, you see? Yeah, it's pretty much a mess. I mean...
And this is the coming world power, at least it will be introduced as such. And that was the emperor behind the curtain, not only Russia, but China, at least in my hypothesis. Somebody is known as the Yellow Emperor. It was said to be an offspring of a human mother and a divine dragon. Yeah, it's like the giants. Yeah. Yeah.
Sure.
And they can also shapeshift in some mythological stuff. So much for the dragon. Up to now that you know that is quite the opposite. You don't have to have any fear. Yeah. So I just spent 1 second on that video here about the second deadliest virus. Few of the monsters that evolution created, and then I shut down the video because I knew it started with a lie, with the evolution lie. Yeah, so I don't have to look to that video again. If you really know the Bible, you know that they're always lying to you, so you only have to spend 1 second to that video. Let's get back. How artificial intelligence will disrupt the entire world in 3 years, from Emad Mostak, who runs a very important company about it. He said, as you said, most of the people aren't asking the right questions. So when we go into an old case of a 50-year-old deceased or murdered Asian superstar, what relevance does it have? It has the relevance that I'm doing that step by step to show you how you really can look behind the curtain, and you have a hypothesis with so much more than, I do not know, hundreds of coincidences that it's hard to get to the official mass media stuff with an idiosyncratic reaction to one aspirin. So most of the people aren't asking the right questions. The right questions would be, where do you come from? Why are you here? And where will you go? And I think that the majority of people, they will tell anything about what they have learned in school. Yeah, I'm coming just from randomly out from an ancient soup, and it water rained on the earth, and then everything happened in chaos, and I'm the result of it. Ah, sure. And life has no purpose but to have fun, do what thou wilt, and there is no afterlife and nothing to worry about. And that's a problem where they get all the people. Yeah, and even the people who are claiming they be Christians, now out of a sudden you learn they are 501c3, so they are government sponsored, they don't have to pay any taxes, and they are according on the official route of the mass media, or let's say on the mass church, which leads to destruction, which is of course the Roman Catholic Church. It's no coincidence that Mr. Biden is a Catholic. It's no coincidence. Okay.
No coincidence he's in Knight of Malta, too, which is a secret society which you and I never learned about in school.
Yeah, but this is mandatory. You have to be the one first to get the job of the President of the United States. You are no representative of the state or representative of the people. You are representative of the Roman Catholic Church beast system.
There you go. Yeah, plain and simple. Yeah, that's right.
So, what happened when in May 1971, Golden Harvest sends Mr. Lowry Award to USA to convince Bruce to star in 2 films? Oh, you will not believe it, in 3 sessions from now. First of all, we go into this book from a gentleman called Tom Bleecker, which is the second husband of Bruce Lee's widow. It's called Unsettled Matters, The Life and Death of Bruce Lee, with a rose. A much more interesting picture would be this here, Unsettled Matters, with a pentagram, satanic pentagram of Bruce Lee on the so-called Walk of Fame, which actually is in biblical terms a walk of shame. But everything has been tossed around here in this world. Yeah, they lay out a red carpet. Red is the color of blood. My, it's so easy. I will read it for you so that you once and for all have the official timeline and the official verdict and... no, this is not the official. I will read it to you as his opinion of Tom Bleecker, which is, I think, spot on. Although Enter the Dragon had not yet been released, it was generally agreed that Bruce Lee was on the verge of international stardom and that he was returning to the United States, which was his intention. If this was true, then why all the discussion about Raymond Chow, Betty Ting and Bruce Lee spending so much time rewriting the script to Game of Death? Clearly, Bruce had finally accomplished his chief aim in life. Hollywood, his chief aim in life was to be the first Oriental superstar in the United States, not in Hong Kong. Hollywood was banging on his door. Apart from the fact that there wasn't even a script to rewrite, even if there had been a script to Game of Death, it makes no sense that Bruce would have been in any rush to get the film produced. For on the day Bruce died, he didn't need Raymond Chow or Golden Harvest or Concord or Game of Death. All he had to do was call Ted Ashley as Warner Brothers and tell him he wanted the top 3 available writers in Hollywood placed at his disposal, along with a plate of oyster beef and a hot tea served at his private bungalow at the Beverly Hills Hotel or anywhere else for that matter, and he would have gotten all of it. And what's more, he knew it because he'd hung out with Steve McQueen and James Coburn and Sterling Siliphant, and so he knew all about Tinseltown's million-dollar packaging agents and business managers and entertainment lawyers, and you can bet all of them were eagerly calling Bruce Lee. This, however, is not the picture that's been painted by Raymond Chow, Betty Ting and Linda Lee for the past 29 years when that book came out. On July the 20th, 1973, Bruce is a hurried man. Raymond Chow arrives at Lee's house and the men sit for hours poring over final rewrites. Amazing as it sounds, Raymond has suddenly become Bruce's writing partner. The clock is ticking. The ink is still wet on the pages. A typhoon Dorothy begins to unleash its initial fury. Dorothy is the name of the female lead character in The Wizard of Oz. And of course, who leads to the Wizard of Oz? It's the yellow brick road from Elton John depicted here. Follow the yellow brick road. We are off to see the wizard, the wonderful Wizard of Oz. And pay no attention to that man behind the curtain. Or in other words, pay no attention to the agenda behind Bruce Lee, because there are some people who are pulling the strings and are very successful, much more successful than Bruce Lee. One of them could be Raymond Chow, because he was awarded and he was having a great life in Hong Kong, and he did not die. As the Typhoon Dorothy begins to unleash its initial fury, they rush over to the apartment of Betty Ting Pei, a C-rated actress, to offer her a part in Bruce's next film. God willing, she will accept in time for the three of them then to drive to the Miramar Hotel, by the way, Triad-controlled, to wine and dine George Lazenby in the hope that he too will accept the part. 2 weeks earlier, Bruce had turned down a role to star with Elvis Presley, yet he's rushing through the day in the hope of starring with B-rated actor Lazenby. 10 weeks earlier, Bruce had collapsed at Golden Harvest and had been rushed to Baptist Hospital on the verge of death. And now, rather than recuperating, he's feverishly racing all over town with a Hong Kong producer, a C-rated Taiwanese actress, and George Lazenby, with barely enough time to partake in 2 soft drinks throughout the entire day, only to lie down that evening with a splitted headache. It's an utterly absurd scenario. Bruce may have had little choice but to tolerate this kind of day 6 months earlier, but he obviously had no reason to do so on July the 20th. So what's wrong with the basic story? The first problem has to do with the general atmosphere surrounding Raymond Chow's early afternoon appearance at Cumberland Road. Clearly he wasn't there to work with Bruce rewriting Game of Death, so why the wizard? For the past 29 years, many people have questioned why Cumberland Road had suddenly and curiously turned into a ghost town on July the 20th. Normally, the Lee's house was akin to Great Central Station, with what being home to two large families and with a backyard often overrun with children. So the obvious question is, where was everyone? Linda claims to have gone to lunch with Rebo Huey, the wife pop singer Sam Hui. Besides Linda, where was Wu Nagan? And where was Nagan's wife? Also gone? Who was watching all the children? Gone too? The point is, where were all these people who could have verified the events of that afternoon? Their collective absence just sounds all too convenient. As to the real reason behind Raymond Chow's appearance at Cumberland Road that day, the answer is probably known only to Raymond Chow, Linda Lee, Rebo Hui, Betty Ting, and probably Wu Nagan. All things considered, what seems certain is that something went on that day at Cumberland Road that no one wants to talk about. And whatever it is, it would appear that, among other things, 27 years ago, it made Lee's house servant Wu Nagan a very rich man. So much for that extract from that excellent book of Tom Bleecker, Unsettled Matters. Back to the script of Pop Cult Master. There is another woman in this whole ordeal that doesn't get mentioned. Raymond Chow's wife, Felicia. She remarked that the death had occurred just in time to save the last scrap of her husband's pride. Linda claimed that Felicia picked them up from the hospital, but we never heard any anecdotes of being her at Dong Langford's house, of course, in the middle of the night. Question: don't you see a pattern? Amazing stuff, somebody says. Did Bruce used to beat Linda? If so, this means Linda was miserable with Bruce and that their marriage was pretty much over. Pop Cult Master's answer is, if Tom Bleecker's words are anything to go by, I would say, yeah, that's about the marriage. You should ask him about it. With or without domestic violence, Bruce was insufferable to live with. During their Hong Kong years, he would wake up Linda very early in the morning to fetch him a bowl of shredded wheat, a claim that she removes from her second memoir. The Bruce Lee story in 1989 is nothing more than a retreat of the man I only knew, but with more photos. The 1989 book doesn't include Bruce's feelings on infidelity, nor does it contain the admission that he would awaken her in the early morning hours to fetch him a bowl of shredded wheat. That's also the reason why Jackie Chan always said that he was the opposite of Bruce Lee. That could mean that he was willing to cooperate. Also, I read a story of Bruce Lee just letting Low wait to wait and wait forever for his final decision. And Bruce Lee was very rude to Lu Wei after Fist of Fury because he did not answer in time. So actually he lost face, and he wasn't that charming actor that most of this world is trying to depict. From the documentary The Curse of the Dragon, a statement of Bruce Lee, he says the brain can subjugate anything, even real pain. From that very same documentary, it's been said that the mafia has put its stamp on the business many times and tried to get a grip on a star of his caliber. So when Bruce refused to play ball with them, he's got a big problem on his hands, which is now being backed, which is very interesting. I think it's Paul Heller. From the Enter the Dragon team, he says, to play ball with him, he's gotten very cocky. Yeah, I mean, he was... Computer very lazy. I mean, he was strutting is the best... I think it's the best word. Strutting means important manner, walk with affected dignity, display one's clothes proudly, vainly flaunt fine attire. From Wing Chun News, we learn that Bruce Lee had a violent temper. It is not in the interview of Pierre Burton, because in Pierre Burton it's been portrayed, Bruce Lee said, now, I mean, you don't go around on the street kicking people. That was in 1971, 2 years before. Or punching people, because if you do, yeah, that's it. And he's just making a sound and a hand gesture which is closely resembling a pistol. Yeah, that's it. I mean, he said, I don't care how good you are, because there are guns, and in all these movies there are no guns allowed, yeah, for their martial arts movies. So it is hilarious, but it's just it's a fantasy world. Yeah, everything around the fights and movies of Bruce Lee is a fantasy world. I came across a very interesting interview of Tony Liu, who played also one of the villains of The Big Boss in 1971. He said, if you try to hit him, so Bruce Lee, he would have moved and hit you already. And all those martial arts experts thought, so the next time we fight, I won't be using fists, I'll bring a gun. Making the same hand gesture that Bruce Lee had. And he says, oh yeah, you have to remember some people. Everybody in Southeast Asia knows Alan Tang Kwong Wing. It's very interesting that he mentioned him, because wait for it. From Popcorn Master, we learn the following. That Bruce Lee wanted to take over stuntmen to the United States, among them Jackie Chan and Yuen Bao, which went on to be great stars from the Hong Kong movie. Triad boss Alan Tang knew about this plan, so he is a triad boss, Alan Tang. Alan Tang being allowed to temporarily borrow 3 of Sammo's stuntmen for the United States. Sammo never worked for Alan Tang, or with Alan Tang. And this is the official Wikipedia article. It says that Tang was an active philanthropist in Hong Kong and mainland China as both an individual and an involved Rotarian. This is a pre-runner organization, a front organization for the Freemasons. So somebody who is a triad and who is a Freemason at the same time. Yes, now it gets interesting, I think.
I heard what you said, philanthropist.
Yeah.
Who else do we know these days who's
yeah.
a philanthropist?
Bill, who's trying to close the gates, yes. Mm-hmm.
I call him Bill in the gates of hell.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Open the gates of hell. It's the opposite, I think.
Yeah. Somebody says Mr. Alan Tang helped out Operation Yellowbird by exerting his great influence in Macau. We know who his residence is in Macau. This is the Jesuits. So with that character of Alan Tang, you got to try it with the affiliations of Freemasons being portrayed officially as a philanthropist and has a great influence in Macau. And if you don't smell anything, then you have to sneeze. Yeah. Alan Tang, who was producing movies from the best buddy, or one of the best buddies of Bruce Lee, Unicorn Chan. You have gangsters and triads all over the place. All over the place. Yeah. And Tony Leo says in this interview, the youngster Tang Kwok Wing, so actually Alan Tang, they thought he could take Bruce Lee. We're speaking of 1971. Well, Alan Tang, he does Thai boxing. And he's very big and he likes fighting. And he just didn't like Bruce. It's bad when a triad gangster, Freemason affiliated philanthropist who's very busy in Macau doesn't like Bruce. And I think that he's not the only one. Another people who came into my mind, for example, is Lu Wei, the one who was threatened by Bruce Lee with a knife to his throat. It was like, you're invincible, I'm invincible, it can't be. But he says that Bruce Lee was very much appreciated even in Japan, which is outstanding. They made a Bruce Lee shrine there. Chinese people were being affiliated then and been seen as Chinese Kung Fu and brilliant. So that's how I feel Bruce helped the Chinese in this way, that they could rely on their Chinese Kung Fu, which made them superior. And they gained, the Chinese people, they gained momentum and confidence, yes, in the world. Thank you. Yeah. Even in 1971, the interviewer Pierre Burton says Bruce Lee had to change his phone number and get mobs in the street in 1971. Can you imagine? Yeah. And now it comes very funny, because Bruce Lee says here in 80 minutes, the word superstar really turned me off, and I tell you why, because the word is not appropriate. Although Oriental superstar is the very same phrase that he used in 1969 in his Definite Chief Aim, with the 5 times I will of Satanic Pentagram. He says the word superstar really turned me off. And he said, I will be the highest paid Oriental superstar, so don't come up with the idea that what he's really thinking is the same that he's pronouncing on the air. I don't buy it. Not until I have read this interview here, seen this interview today. Okay, let's move on. I don't want to overdo it, but a friend of mine showed me that video here, of a Spanish video about the Inquisition. It took 350 years. Yeah, 350 años. I can't speak Spanish. I'm sorry. And they, in the Inquisition, they wanted to convert all these people to Christianity. And Brett, of course, put a note below that and said, who refused to convert to Christianity should say who refers to convert to Roman Catholicism.
That's right. Because there's a huge difference. Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
Huge difference.
Yes. Yeah. I did not know that the Inquisition took 350 years. I did not know that. I found that only very interesting that Bruce Lee, he was riding red, the color of blood, Mercedes-Benz 350 SL, but it's, of course, one of the 500 coincidences. Huh?
Wow.
Must be a coincidence. Huh? But now look at the hierarchy here. Bruce Lee is riding sports car, a 2-seater convertible from Mercedes-Benz. Now look at this picture here from the funeral of Bruce Lee, where Raymond Shaw is escorting or grabbing Mrs. Lee in a big Mercedes-Benz limousine. So higher up in the hierarchy, because it can have room for 5 people, not for 2. Up in the hierarchy, you see Run Run Shaw with his Rolls Royce as the biggest producer in Hong Kong. Now, can you imagine that has something to do with hierarchy? And Bruce Lee's always biggest wish was not only to make it and be a superstar and to have $10 million, but to order a Rolls Royce, which I think he did, or at least he wanted to, with the money he should earn from Enter the Dragon. Yeah, so he wanted to have a Rolls Royce, so that he wanted to be on top of the hierarchy. And there you see a motive. Yeah, at least to me, it looks like a motive in the hierarchy. You see, an automobile, especially in Hong Kong, in the dense area, has been seen as a symbol of status, of wealth. Yeah. So if you're an actor, you get the maximum you can get is a big red sports car, 2-seater convertible. If you are a producer, you get what's jetzt der englische Name dafür? A representative limousine. Yeah, so you see that you have star status and you are a very important person. And if you are one of the millionaires, yeah, you drive Rolls-Royce. And he drove Rolls-Royce at least since 1961, because I have found a picture here of Mr. Run Shaw with his Rolls-Royce in 1961. So there you got a motive already. If you wanted to have a Rolls-Royce, which we know here from chapter 4 of Unsettled Matters, when the Rolls-Royce arrives, Bruce Lee says, I know exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to drive down to the waterfront and call Roman Polanski and Steve McQueen on the car phone. And when they ask where I'm calling from, I say, from the back seat. So he has a chauffeur. He does not ride on his own. He has servants. From the back seat of my Rolls-Royce overlooking the jungles in Hong Kong Harbor. Interesting that he is mentioning the waterfront, because that is the area, or close to the area of Tsim Sha Tsui, which is 14 km right, Michael Chen 1's territory, and close to Ta King Street, where, according to Fan Mei Sheng, he was killed. If you want to ride a Rolls-Royce in Hong Kong, then you want to be number 1. You don't want to be number 2. So that puts also Run Shaw in the line of suspects. Because never ever can an actor have an own studio, his own producers, and his own company and all the stuff. This is unheard of. Jackie Chan did not have that luxury. Nobody has, at least not in the 70s and 80s. For me, that's a big motive. Because he wanted to PPP on anybody's feet. Yeah? To have a Rolls-Royce, even a golden Rolls-Royce, means there's nobody on top of him in the hierarchy. Bruce Lee's Lust for Cars is a hilarious page with all this disinformation. In the early 1980s, he bought a Porsche 928. Sure, yeah, in the early 1980s. Yeah, okay, he's immortal, it seems. So Bruce Lee says he don't want to be called a superstar. That's an illusion. It's something what the public calls you. Yeah, so, but you see that he's not honest in that. His daughter, only surviving child, called Channel Lee, said he was definitely human. He has also a temper. He was quick to anger. I said, oh. Bruce was well known for having a real violent temper, which absolutely does not help in a situation when you have been confronted with triads and other producers, people with money. People with money always have people at their disposal, servants, potential killers. Yeah. He says, I have heard it with my own eyes. He says, I do have a bad temper, a violent temper, in fact. And even his female lead in 3 movies out of 5 from Nora Miao, he says, if you want to pick his shortcomings, the only problem was his temper. Yeah, can you imagine drawing the knife to a former producer of your movies? Can you remember shouting to people, ranting, threatening people, and then want to have a Rolls Royce? What a kind of somebody who is a pain in the peep. So everybody says that he has a violent temper. Can you imagine? Everybody went so unexpectedly. And then he said that, yeah, I'm ready. I don't fear anybody. You better kill me before. He said, I have a bad temper, a violent temper. In fact, so this is coming from the 1971 Ted Thomas interview. You can look it up yourself. I can also display it here.
Is that I do have a bad temper, a violent temper, in fact.
Peter Lee, his older brother, observed that he had a small bruise on his neck. Wong Chong-leung noticed is not a student but his teacher. That is also wrong. It's wrong. It must be teacher here. Noticed that there were lumps all over his body. And Sterling Siliphant and other notations include moderate bruises on his fingertips of both hands. Sterling Siliphant, the world-famous scriptwriter, declared that it was Bruce martial artistry that failed him instead of protecting him. So we can't ask Mr. Siliphant, but you can draw the conclusion that it has something to do with martial arts, his death. So I have included in the 24 things, I have included Run One Shaw. This is also a theory of Mr. Depperman. So Bruce Lee challenged the underworld to a game of death. I have to decrease it a bit, would be more fluent, I think. Yeah, so you can see clearly some injuries on his face. This is a picture that nobody should have seen. Yeah, they should have seen the makeup picture. Yeah, it's a big difference between left and right. Look at the eyebrow. My suggestion would be that they used a kind of arsenic or strychnine or any other poison. There are so many poisons which been given from time to time. They decrease body's ability to recreate and dying cells and whatever, because the atomic number of arsenic is 33, which would lead to a certain secret society. So, arsenic trioxide, which we have spoken about last time. UN funeral parlor worker stated that his hands and feet were blackened. This is a common side effect of arsenic poisoning, which doesn't cause a cerebral edema, and also a synonym of snake venom powder poisoning. Think of the devenomized snake in Enter the Dragon. James Coburn attended Bruce Lee at a funeral and observed that his face looks like a mask because of the makeup. And we have so many contradictions in testimonies here from Andrew Morgan. He says, when this casket has been opened and the white silk interior has been stained from Bruce's suit, the freight area of a 747 is not pressurized. I came up with the internet research, I shown it last time as an insertion here, that in general, if the passenger area is pressurized, the cargo is too. That must be a very outlandish special plane in 747 in 1973. Everything is not normal in 1973. So we enter the Dragon, or enter Sandman, which actually is the same, yeah, because the Dragon is the same as Satan, as the same as Sandman, who's trying to fool you, to put you to sleep. So chaos was there. There was a protection cover here that nobody could touch his corpse. The release of the autopsy findings threw fresh fuel on the flames of speculation. Soon the press has printed all those fantasies about Bruce Lee's death that are still believed by millions of people the world around. There is a fantasy, in fact, for every temperament, every disposition. Those who believe in the mysterious East will tell you that Bruce Lee was killed by a vibrating palm, a special blow that the victim may not notice and that does not produce its effect for days, weeks, months, or years. Interesting enough, Bruce Lee himself claimed to be able to deliver this blow, especially in that fist of fury moment with the so-called Japanese cook, who has poisoned his teacher. What a coincidence, another poison. Martial arts teacher poisoned. Those disposed to attribute all mysterious deaths to the machinations of the mob argue that Bruce Lee was killed by the Trials, whose power he had supposedly defied. This is the theme of the posthumous film Game of Death. James Coburn, as a student and a Hollywood celebrity, says that his face looks like a mask because of the makeup, and I will insert that here.
His father ate opium. He was an opium eater, and he had his opium, his pipe, every day for as long as he was a comic. The Chinese, the upper class Chinese, all of them, Persians as well, I guess, and a lot of the where the opium is grown, they have a pipe of it a day.
Knowing Bruce like I knew him, I really feel like that he made some people angry at what he did when he went to Hong Kong, and he was quite successful. And of course, the thing about Bruce, when he went to Hong Kong, he didn't go in with humility. He went in with rough shoes. He was quite successful, and he didn't mind telling anybody about it that challenged him locally or on TV, or he had many, many conflicts with the powers that be over there. Knowing what I know, I lived in Japan for over a year and a half. I know a lot of the things about the Asian ways, and it's a very ancient race, and they have ways to inflict restitution that a lot of people don't understand.
It didn't look like Bruce lying there, did it? It looked like, it looked like a mask of Bruce Lee, painted almost. But it certainly didn't look like Bruce.
And I really feel he's assassinated. It's always been my viewpoint.
I know it looked like a mask of Bruce Lee, painted almost, but it certainly didn't look like Bruce. And his colleague confirmed. So Bruce Lee most likely had not died a natural death. James Coburn says it didn't look like Bruce lying there, did it? Some people will accuse me of saying, yeah, that was more than 10 days later. He said it looked like a mask because of the makeup. Bay Logan, as one of Hong Kong's famous martial arts producers, says in 1978 there is also a rumor that Bruce Lee wasn't dead, that he actually faked his death to escape his enemies or to go into seclusion. Well, if somebody wants to make $10 million, I don't think that the Schweiz or somebody else would give him to him without any condition, huh? So you can have so many conspiracy theories. And then had a double for Bruce. It was an anonymous businessman. And Andrew Morgan, that guy who came up with the hilarious idea that the freight cargo area of a 747 is not pressurized, is also one who produced the doctor of Bruce Lee, Shannon Lee, and Sammo Hung and all the stuff. So everybody is tied together with anybody in that entertainment business, huh? So there is also a theory about elders killing him because of teaching to non-Asians, which is totally BS, because Ed Parker also was Hawaiian and could have been held accountable for teaching non-Oriental. And the legendary Tai Chi master Jimmy Wu taught non-Chinese on a daily basis without being held accountable by any Chinese elders, Kung Fu masters, or anyone else. So this is also not likely. So it certainly didn't look like Bruce, and somebody, so that James Coburn, saw him in the casket. So nobody knows. In the Orient, everything is possible. Some drugs involved who are unknown to the West. Alex Ben Block said that. He's a writer. Somebody else here, Albert Goldman, the author of The Deadliest Man Alive, says they used a secret death punch story. I met this Baptist minister who was a doctor and who was Bruce Lee's personal physician, and you know whom he's speaking about. And this guy told me what I still believe was the cause of Bruce Lee's death. That he had an allergy to hashish and his brain swelled when he smoked it and pressed against his skull. So an allergy, not for meprobamate or aspirin. Now it's an allergy about or against these hashish. Yeah, sure, it's an allergy. He did not on a regular basis. Yes, he did. So why should he develop out of a sudden an allergy, huh? My. It happened again.
Total BS.
Total BS, yes.
Yes.
It happened this time. He was in a woman's apartment, speaking of Beijing Pei, with whom he was... what else? Yeah. But I got another interesting point of view from Pat Burleson, who was a 10 degrees black belt, the first national karate champion in 1964, personally befriended with Bruce Lee. He says, I really feel like that he made some people angry. And he had an affair. Nobody could get to him in time. He's in the frame set of this Betty Ting Pei incidents where we think that is a fabricated story. And Pat Burleson, as a 10-degree black belt, he says he's assassinated. It's always been my viewpoint. He's not nobody. He's Grandmaster J.P. Burleson. Yeah, 1964 champion in karate, here with Robert Wall, who said, yeah, the Christian have been eaten by lions in Rome. Yeah, that's Mr. Burleson here. He's very famous, or he was actually in the United States. 10-degree black belt, yeah. So these people are speaking out for the theory of the murder, actually. He says, when Bruce came in, it was like Elvis showed up. And this guy said he has a story of Pat Burleson. He said it was when Bruce showed up, it was like Elvis. Nobody knew him. He was just a little Chinaman, and Pat Burleson said, "Oh, what's he going to do with me? He wants to have a fight. I'm going to break him. He's just a little Chinaman." And in those days, he has beaten Chuck Norris. And he said that Bruce Lee took him and just turned him every which way he wanted. So once again, Bruce Lee showed his talent. Yeah, and made him look goofy. A world champion 1964 made him look goofy. And then they were the best friends. And then he had written Pat a letter, and Pat got the letter after Bruce died. So much the story here. And Pat Burleson is like one of the godfathers of American karate. So nobody knows if he might not have been killed by another Chinese or some triad. So let's go into the nitty-gritty of it. Enter the Dragon outtakes, and you have to realize that we're speaking about the movie industry. Remember that we're speaking of a complete movie business here. And this movie business had been introduced by the Jesuits and the Roman Catholic Church in general in China in the Middle Ages. During its 4 centuries of existence, the Jesuit educational theatrical enterprise has produced a proud, poised, and imaginative graduate. He or she is enlightened by the Medici Library's humanities, facile in worldly matters, moved by theatricality, and indifferent towards Holy Scripture. Producing Jesuit graduates had become the aim of modern public education. So they admire and worship science, computers, artificial intelligence, anything but the original creation. And of course, these movies, they serve the purpose to draw you away from the Bible and from the truth, because it's the dragon you shall worship. Huh? Enter the dragon, the way of the dragon. So there are vibrating palms theories, and possibly the mafia and another martial arts groups, whosoever. Hong Kong said there were no visible injuries to Bruce's skulls, none, and this is a lie because you have seen the missing eyebrow. And also a lie that Mr. Donald here was coming over from Scotland Yard for whatever reason, and we shall go into this soon. He had carried out over 90,000 autopsies. You see, there are so many stuff in that which does not fit. Also, his son has been killed, at least on set, on the 31st of March 1993. He was, official story, accidentally shot when a bullet was fired from a .44 caliber handgun that was supposed to have contained blanks, and even in death, Brandon could not escape the shadow of his father. Within hours of Brandon Lee's shooting, an array of rumors were circulating. However, Lee, it was said, was murdered. Brandon Lee, it was said, was murdered by triads, a group of organized criminals. Others pointed to an uncanny similarity between Lee's killing and a scene in his father's final film, Game of Death, which is absolutely true and which we go to quite soon, in which Bruce Lee's character, shooting a movie within a movie, got hit by a real bullet while pretending to die of gunshot wounds. You can imagine that so many coincidences appearing in Bruce Lee's and Brandon Lee's. It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. And if you think there are coincidences, you have to believe it. I have another belief. Bruce Lee's son, Brandon, was shot and killed by cameras rolled, sparkling rumors on foul play and a family curse. Robert Lee, as the younger brother, told Inside Kung Fu magazine, "Our family believes Bruce was murdered. The passing of Bruce 20 years ago, and so in 1973, it was no accident and no death by misadventure. But the only thing that this world is keeping busy is with having a red carpet full of blood analogy and a 5-pointed star. That's all it takes, huh?" And Linda Lee says, so he inspired others to search for and find their own potential in life. And even Jean-Claude Van Varenberg, and not Jean-Claude Van Damme, that's not his real name, says, Bruce was a guy who lived life like crazy, and I talk to you soon, Bruce. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And somebody is worshipping Bruce Lee. He's living outside of time. A call of his ghost. You won't believe it. Yeah. So if you go into the Game of Death, the Game of Death is he faked his death to save his girlfriend from gangsters, and Bruce Lee challenged his the underworld to a game of death. The problem is the underworld is who? Who is the underworld? And in this movie, The Game of Death, actually, they have the real footage of Bruce Lee's funeral in Hong Kong. Tom Bleecker says, oh yeah, it's like the premiere of a Hollywood movie. Yeah, it's a Hollywood movie. It's like a Hollywood movie with all satanic symbolism. It starts that that script of Game of Death had not been written by John Spears, although it has been said that it has been written by John Spears, but it has been written by Robert Clouse, and that's an alias for the director, who has written a biography of Bruce Lee with the title of Bruce Lee, a biography with a chapter 18, Who Killed Him? Yeah, he should know. So in that movie, they have a mask. Obviously, Bruce Lee is not in that coffin. Coming to the second poison, what happened on that particular 19th or 20th day? We know that Fan Mei Sheng has said in the Bruce Lee and I book that Bruce was murdered in an outdoor fight at night. Weirdly, Popcorn Master says there is a movie called The Death of Bruce Lee, which contains 3 ambush scenes where that's the main weapon of choice. Popcorn Master says, since I wrote this article, I found out from Bay Logan, which is a Hong Kong famous martial artist and a producer, Bruce Lee's book, Bruce Lee and I is its name, the title, that Fan Mei Sheng, also member of a triad, believes that Bruce was murdered in an outdoor fight at night. The story goes that Bruce was misled into thinking that he was meeting Betty Ting Pei in a remote location, but was instead ambushed by thugs wielding metal poles. Weirdly, there is a movie called The Death of Bruce Lee, which contains 3 ambush scenes where that's the main weapon of choice. That is that movie. The Death of Bruce Lee. Which is very strange, because I cannot get grasp of that movie on the internet anymore on that title. It had been called Wu-Tang Collection, The Death of Bruce Lee. And the main acting role is from Ron Van Cleef, who was personally known to Bruce Lee. Ron Van Cleef. And the title, the alternative title, one of the titles that he did was The Black Dragon's Revenge. Do you remember, beginning of the sessions, the great flooding was brought by the Black Dragon, a malevolent creature. Interesting, huh? Now he's the hero here in that strange big motion picture. In the beginning of that movie picture, it's been called, the names and characters are of course based on that Death of Bruce Lee, are fictitious, and they have no resemblance to any real names, and it's purely coincidental. Like the everything I do, it is purely coincidental. My. The Death of Bruce Lee. When you search of IMDb the title TT00728858, you come to the original title, which is called Long Cheng Hei Dao Jing Wu Hun. I don't speak Cantonese or Mandarin, but then it's been The Black Dragon's Revenge. Interesting, huh? It's not The Death of Bruce Lee anymore. In German it was called Der geheimnisvolle Tod, which means the secret death. And in the beginning of that you see, or in the trailer of that, you see that Black Dragon is pointing to that picture of Bruce Lee. Looks like he's smiling or so, I do not know. But they're showing the Queen Elizabeth Hospital, which was the hospital. And they are also showing a scene in there, which is an excerpt that we can now show. It's called The Boat Drug Scene. It's a dialogue from that movie. First, I will show it to you, and then we will speak about it.
Drug dealers, in order to expand their business, have been trying to incorporate Bruce in the syndicate, but he repeatedly turned them down. The Hong Kong drug king tried every method to get Bruce to work with them. They offered him everything money could buy. When he refused, they threatened to kill him.
But the report says there's drugs in his body. So what's the twist?
Unfortunately, I'm alone, and they gave me a warning. Silence or 6 feet under.
So tell us a twist.
Okay. When they could not buy him, they used the expert way to kill him. Then they left traces of drugs to be found in his body. They did it in order to convince young people that their idol was a drug user, and that's how he maintained his superb form.
It sounds like an unbelievable plot.
However, it's true, since the amount of drug was not enough to kill a mouse, let alone Bruce.
Can you tell me who they are?
I told you enough. After all, silencer 6 feet under leaves me with no choice.
So it is hard to understand, therefore I asked my beloved American brother Brett A. Norman to make a transcription to me. This is the lines of the one on the boat who is trying to tell a secret. So remember, this can be fiction, this can be fact, it's you to decide. So he says, drug dealers, in order to expand their business, we know that Hong Kong means fragrant harbor, have been trying to incorporate Bruce into the syndicate, but he repeatedly turned him down. The Hong Kong drug king tried every method to get Bruce to work with him. And every method, I think it's about threatening him, threatening his family, blackmail, what else? They offered him everything money could buy. When he refused, they threatened to kill him. So the guy says, but the report says there were drugs in his body, so what's the twist? And the answer is, unfortunately, I'm alone. I do not know what that is. Kind of a strange answer. And they gave a warning, silence or 6 feet under, which means, of course, you end in a coffin. So tell us a twist. The answer was, okay. The informant says, okay, so when they could not buy him, they use an expert way to kill him. And then I was reminded upon the picture in the morgue with the missing eyebrow, with the swelling of the neck and other stuff, and an expert way to kill him. I was immediately remembered of that book of Victor Ostrowski, The Other Side of Deception, about the murder of the German politician Uwe Barschel in a bath tube. Also black and white. Because there are clearly differences in the picture in the morgue, which I have here been colored. Yeah, this is not the original picture. The original picture, as far as I'm concerned, is black and white. This has been colored to make it better comparable to the original picture in the coffin. And to have a little bit more live and freshly appearance here. Yeah, you see clearly the reflections from the flashlight, most likely. So it has been made with makeup. Also, I do not think that corpses, that the mustache is growing on corpses, so it looks a little bit more dark here than here. And the biggest thing is that you don't see the neck swelling, and you see an intact left eyebrow, which has much more hairs than the left one. So that means if you first of all you just publish black and white pictures where you don't see all these fixation points and hematomes, so pressure points and all the stuff, yeah, and then if you put a mask on it or just a bit of makeup and artificial hair and what else, it appears that he's been dying in his sleep peacefully. So many people will regard that as a conspiracy theory. I regard the official theory of an idiosyncratic reaction to aspirin as the real conspiracy theory. I regard the moon landing as a conspiracy theory and regard many things which happened since 2019 as a big conspiracy theory, or actually as a psychological operation. Because when Mr. Barschel was been killed, it happened in Switzerland, not by coincidence, because there are many agents around. And also in this Beau Rivage, which means nice coast, hotel where Mr. Barschel had been found, this is Freemason architecture. And also there are many Freemason places in Switzerland. For example, this is a bank. Yeah, and you clearly see the sun symbol with the rays. My. What a world. And this is the Banque Cantonale de Genève. This the Canton Bank of Genève in Switzerland. It's a universal bank, so it's a Catholic bank. Universal means Catholic. And look where they have representative offices, in Dubai and Hong Kong. Yeah, so there must be much money to earn in Hong Kong. Otherwise, I don't think that a Swiss bank would have any representative office in Hong Kong. My. So, in 10:15, Linda Lee was at the hospital, and it has also been found that Mr. Lee had submucosal hemorrhages in the rectum, so maybe they have used an expert way of killing, who knows? So, going back to this interview of the death of Bruce Lee on that boat scene by that informant here, then they left traces of drug to be found in his body. They did it in order to convince young people that their idol was a drug user, and that made him daily superb form, or made him in a daily superb form. So that's just a plausible idea. Popgold Master says, for example, death by chronic cyanide poisoning is difficult to detect and can be confused for a natural death. According to the Bruce Lee story by Tom Bleecker and Linda Lee, James Coburn has been quoted, towards the end of his life, Bruce seemed to be carrying a great weight. Something bad set in. He was being hit on all sides by everybody, and he had to have his guard up all the time. So, back to that interview. It sounds like an unbelievable plot, but the answer is, however, it's true, since the amount of drug was not enough to kill a man, let alone Bruce. Yeah, so drugs could be placed in the stomach or where else for autopsy and for other reasons, so that to put the blame away from the real stuff. Also, you have to take into consideration that the autopsy has been done days after, so that many traces of any poison could be flushed out in the meantime. So you can't have a certain answer of the autopsy because that happened too late. So in that movie, they wanted to know who they are, so the syndicate, drug syndicate, and the answer is, I told you enough. After all, Silence or 6 Feet Under, leave him no choice. And that was, of course, a bad English and a bad quality, but that's the best I can come up with. Interesting enough is that they are showing here a group of people in a narrow path. I know from some other people who had described being attacked in a narrow street that he couldn't get away. You can't flee, because if you are surrounded by people in a narrow street, you can't get away. This bears similarities to a successor of a Bruceploitation movie called Enter the Game of Death, so a combination of Enter the Dragon and Game of Death, where the Bruce Lee imitation character also had been attacked by metal poles. This is the official scene from the death of Bruce Lee, where a female, dressed like almost a fling or cheap girl or prostitute or whatsoever, is putting something out of her trousers. And look what's happening now. She's using a dart pipe, isn't it? Dart pipe, is it correct?
A blow dart, I would say.
A blow dart, thank you. A blow dart. So with this, you can, at the distance, safe and secure, you can poison somebody. She's not whistling on it, it's not a flute, it's a blow dart, which you will see very soon. Which reminded me of that scene from Enter the Dragon with a blow dart. And she is supposedly to be a spy in that movie and to collaborate with Bruce Lee. So, and Bruce Lee is gonna pick up the apple here with the blow dart in it, and then that means that he could have her for the night. Oh, that's great. He is picking up in Enter the Dragon that blow dart. That's very interesting. So you see here that girl in action, hitting a character which is fighting in a narrow street with a dart. Where, Brad, where is he been hurt?
Oh. Right here.
So, now look.
Yeah,
Which side it is?
left side.
Left side. Yeah, he's still fighting, and what does he do? Yeah, he's been beaten up by that girl. And now, what does he do?
Collapse, yeah.
He takes out that dart. And he's unbuttoning his shirt like Bruce Lee would do in many of his movies. But the end of the story is that he can't escape, he can't run away, and he's surrounded by all the thugs. If that does not remind you on Bruce Lee, I don't know. That reminds me on Bruce Lee much, very much. Yeah, and at the end then, when the poison is starting to work, yeah, he is losing consciousness and he's just dead. And what struck me in that movie is not the possibility that it is close to the telling of Fan Mei Sheng of being beaten up by thugs, but actually the position of the dart.
Oh, yes.
A fixed picture here, which... yeah, you see the metal poles? There are the metal poles. There are knives, metal poles. The original story of Fan Mei Sheng was he was beaten up. On the original story of Charles Lowe in that interview was that there was a reporter who said that yeah, Bruce Lee died. He was beaten up by 10 or 20 people in Tsimsha Tsui district. And Fan Mei Sheng said it happened in a children playground in Tak Hing Street, and that they were attacking him from behind with metal poles. And now you see clearly that there is a girl involved. Yeah. And he's been struck on the left side. That's the side here on the left side of the neck, yeah, where the swelling is. And the autopsy report from Dr. Lisette said that there are no visible injuries on Bruce Lee's head. Sure, when half of his eyebrow is missing, or at least it does not look like in the before-after picture. So this is the best I can come up with at the moment. And many people, including Popcorn Master and Tom Bleecker, they are coming up with snake poison for a certain reason, because the snake was de-venomized in the Enter the Dragon movie, which then would be very much fitting. So even though they have found maybe cannabis or what else in his system, nobody knows if he had taken it or if it had been put into his body, because you see that there are expert ways of killing somebody, getting rid of somebody. It looks like suicide and drug overdose and all this stuff. So who knows how many people, celebrities, politicians or else, have been murdered, and it has been officially claimed they have been had suicides or plane crash or what else. Nobody knows it. Nobody knows. Bay Logan once paraphrased Arthur Conan Doyle, who was a Jesuit, the inventor of Sherlock Holmes, quote, unquote, "When you have eliminated all which is impossible, that whatever remains, however improbable, must be the truth." Patrick Wang, Sayuk photographer, was disallowed to snap anything in the morgue other than Bruce Lee's head for the Come Ye Power newspaper. Wow, wow, wow. So we don't have a picture of his entire body. And we don't have a picture of his neck, which is only black and white. So there are many, many signs that it's not correct, that he was not poisoned, humiliated, beaten up, or what else. Monday, July the 13th, U.S. funeral parlor worker stated that his hands and feet were black, and this is a common side effect of arsenic poisoning, which doesn't cause cerebral edema, and snake venom powder poisoning. James Coburn says that his face looks like a mess because of the makeup. Popcorn Master also says, in late April, an insurance policy was ordered on Bruce. It came into effect on May the 5th. On May the 10th, when Enter the Dragon has been shot, Bruce suffered a collapse at the Golden Harvest studio, so it's every time when Raymond Shaw was present, because of an event that was a combination of food poisoning and cannabis poisoning. That's an assumption. He fell into coma and almost died. He was in medical care, etc., etc. So what caused his death then, finally, on the 20th of July? Going back to Enter the Dragon. A second accident happened while preparing to shoot a scene with a cobra. Before each take, in order to get the hood around the cobra's head to flare out, Bruce would wrap the snake across the nose a few times. Finally it struck back. Fortunately, the snake had been drained of venom, but Bruce was left wounded and shaken. Bruce had beaten the snake 9 times before it beat him, adds Bob Wall. That's the guy, Robert Wall, who said, yeah, in Rome in the Colosseum, the Christians were being eaten by lions. So that was a cobra here. It was de-venomized. Who's got the poison? So for Enter the Dragon, they have used the snake. What a coincidence, huh? It's a cobra, you can clearly see that. And he was hitting her on the head, so provoking the cobra to blow up her head. William Chung, great master and childhood friend who introduced Bruce Lee to Wing Chun Kung Fu, says, his eldest brother died as a baby, so they thought that devils, you see Chinese superstition, couldn't take the boy from the family, so they gave Bruce a female name called Little Phoenix. It's a female name, Little Phoenix, in Little Dragon, at female name Little Phoenix, and so Little Dragon in that time, Yeah, but he had a female name also to confuse the spirits that Bruce Lee was not a boy but a girl. William Chung says, Grandmaster Ed must have known this poisoning when shortly after Bruce's death he was quoted as saying, many of us do not know the inner thinking and secrets of the Chinese herbalist. They have herbs for medicine and they have ones we have never heard of for poison. I believe it was foul play that killed Bruce Lee. Comes from Unsettled Matters, Tom Bleecker. Snakes were a recurring theme during the making of Enter the Dragon. Fred Weintraub's book mentions how Brute would tease them with a cobra on a regular basis, whereas there were a particular obsession with snake soup, as mentioned in Robert Clouse' Enter the Dragon book. Fred Weintraub, by the way, was a Warner Brothers executive in the early 1970s and co-produced the movie Enter the Dragon with Paul Heller. May I tell you that Warner Brothers are Freemasons? During pre-production, Klaus and Weintraub had received a dinner invitation from Run Run Shaw, you know, the rival company, the man who drove the Rolls-Royce. The snake soup that Weintraub was given must have traumatized him because Andrew Morgan told Klaus for his book, quote, Fred Weintraub and Paul Heller had been in Hong Kong for maybe 2 weeks. They were convinced I was going to somehow feed them snake soup. They figured I would order it for them under a Chinese name and they would end up eating it unknowingly. They lived in abject fear of snake soup. At every meal they would ask, is this snake soup? Is this snake soup? Finally they had irritated Louis Sid and me enough that we said, today they get snake soup just because it's time. We were going out to Shettin, looking for a location, and we stopped at this tiny hole-in-the-wall restaurant we know that had good snake soup. Why I am referring to snake, you will see. Well, Fred Weintraub says, Heller was my partner at that time and I brought him in. Bruce was dying at this point to do an international film. I mean, it's all he wanted to show Steve McQueen or Coburn or everybody else. So what he's telling here, Fred Weintraub, is that in this version it's Raymond, in another version it's Bruce who came up and said, okay, then settle it and then do a cooperation between a Hong Kong company and Warner Brothers. Yeah, so even then, after this long time, you don't get a common explanation of the things to happen. Pat Johnson says, remembering Bruce Lee, he wanted to do anything to be an international film star. He was a wonderful actor and he drew people into the martial arts. And now comes the big one from Popcorn Master. Listen please very carefully. Popcorn Master said, I finally got around to reading the childhood section of Matthew Polly's biography, Bruce Lee Alive, and I was taken aback by the snake references. The first reference as follows. Grandma Lee nicknamed him Tiny Phoenix, the female counterpart of the dragon in Chinese mythology, in order to keep him safe from the ox ghosts and snake spirits who like to hurt little boys. The second reference, Bruce wore thick horn-rimmed glasses and his ear was pierced to protect him from boy-stealing snake demons. It might sound like fantasy to you, but for a superstitious Chinese who tried to fool demons, spirits, when they're piercing the ear of a young boy, and you got two references of snake demons being attacking a young boy, then the ultimate enemy of little dragon and tiny phoenix must be a snake. And therefore I see a high probability that snakes were involved in the killing of Bruce Lee. And then it would sum up to the snake in Enter the Dragon, and it would sum up to the movie of Wu-Tang, The Death of Bruce Lee, with the blow dart. T-Money, Tom Bleecker says, interesting that in the last paragraph, powdered snake venom is mentioned as an alternative to arsenic poisoning. Arsenic poisoning, reference to the atomic number 33. Tom Bleecker says, I say this because in my novel T-Money it is powdered snake venom that kills the lead male who is the counterpart in the story of Bruce Lee.
Oh boy.
This is Wong Chong Leung, the Wing Chun teacher of Bruce Lee, and he said in an interview his toes were crammed together. Like his entire body were in cramp. And this is the solution from the fiction novel of Andy Lee, which is the resemblance of Bruce Lee, of Tom Bleecker, the second husband of Linda Lee, that he was poisoned with snake venom, snake poison. If he was beaten up before or afterwards, no one can tell. But what we can tell is that there were injuries, and what we can tell is that if Wong Chong Leung is correct, that he was in cramp. And now you just count 2 and 2 together. I can't provide more information about the death of Bruce Lee because I'm not involved. I'm not member of any or not affiliated with any secret societies. This is all just comparing stuff and looking out for what is logical, what seems common sense here. T-money, that novel, is a definition, a bribe used to facilitate any business dealing. So it must be money. It must be money in Hong Kong. And Hong Kong is a fragrant harbor, so money and drugs. And what kind of drugs they have used, I do not know. At first glance, I would have suggested they use a cobra. But there is also a second possibility or another possibility in that. Now, this is just scenes from Enter the Dragon. It's a Russell's viper. It's native to Pakistan and India. They're extremely rare and we have no listing for an anti-venom. And this is coming from that precious book that I have in my possession. A Russell's viper is a venomous snake in the family Viperiadia, native to the Indian subcontinent and one of the big 4 snakes in India. It was prescribed by George Shaw and Frederick Paternotte and named after Patrick Russell, who wrote about it in his 1796 work, An Account of Indian Serpents Collected on the Coast of Coromandel. Now compare this with the official timeline of China, 1839. The British Empire and the Jesuits conquer India and China through the Opium Wars. Opium is traded by the Sassoon family and Skull and Bones families like Russell, and used to demoralize the Chinese population and make them addicted. Of course, that is just another conspiracy theory. This is just coincidence. I do not know the reason why Tom Bleecker comes up with Russell's viper, but I have a sneaking suspicion. Patrick Russell was a Scottish surgeon and naturalist who worked in India. Oh, a Scottish. Interesting. He studied the snakes of India and is considered the father of Indian ornithology. Russell's viper, Daboia russellii, is named after him. The Russell, derived from Ross, red hare, red lion, dragon. Their coat of arms is a dragon. Family is a Skull and Bones family that is controlling the Chinese and Indian opium trades with the Jesuits and were called Earls of Tavistock. Opium trader Samuel Russell founded Russell's and Company. What a strange coincidence is this. William Huntington Russell founded Skull and Bones, a secret society of Yale University with Alfonso Taft in 1832. Charles Taze Russell founded the Zion Watchtower Tract Society in 1881, known as the Jehovah's Witness cult, the Watchtower Society that practiced the Enochian magic of John Dee. Many more Russells coming up. John Russell wrote the screenplay of Mademoiselle Midnight, MM=33, the first film of MGM. Raymond Russell worked for the film studio of Frank Baum, Theosophical Society, Wizard of Oz, with Mildred Harrells, one of the wives of Charlie Chaplin. Bertrand Russell was trained at Cambridge and the LSE, London School of Economy, of the Fabian Society. Wolf in sheep's clothing worked for CIA Propaganda Front, Congress for Cultural Freedom. Russells everywhere. Russell's viper. Jane Russell played the Whore of Babylon archetype in The Outlaw of Howard Hughes with Albert Broccoli, who later produced the James Bond movies and later movies with Marilyn Monroe. Russells, Kurt Russell, Ken Russell. Roman Catholic movie director who made Mind Control movie Altered States based on sensory deprivation tank research of John Lilly with 5-year-old Drew Barrymore, and you know why these actors are all controlled. So this is the best theory I can come up with. Slowly poisoning somebody, weakening somebody, losing muscles, losing his temper, being displayed as a drug freak in Hong Kong. So that everybody says, oh yeah, he's a drug freak, and what else? You see that you can buy drugs, and maybe it was not only for him, but for some other people. Nobody knows. And nobody knows the authenticity of these drug letters. You see that maybe he has ordered them for other stuff. Maybe he wanted to trade. Nobody knows. Nobody knows. Yeah, you can't trust anybody. You can't trust his brother. You can't trust his wife. You can't trust anybody. Nobody. Additional information I can serve. The movie that Triad director Lo Wei was looking when Bruce Lee attacked him with a knife was named Snake Girl. But it must be a coincidence, right? The Russell's viper bite has enough venom to kill 22 humans, and how to treat it. So, could be anything, huh? Right? But a character here, which is not Bruce Lee in the movie, but the movie is called The Death of Bruce Lee, has been attacked in a narrow street by thugs with metal weeding poles, and is then been injured on the left side of his neck with a poisoned dart. It can't get any better than this, I think. Grandma Lee named him Tiny Phoenix, the female counterpart to the dragon in Chinese mythology, in order to keep him safe from the ox ghost and snake spirits who like to hurt little boys. Somebody says God made a mistake because we have to give snakes their legs back. Or the Chinese myth of the immortal white snake, which has been used here to close down the session in a few minutes. This is a Chinese myth of the immortal white snake, the boy who tricked the devil. And it's a white snake, so don't come up with another coincidence of a famous rock group called Whitesnake with MM33 symbolism on it. But must be a coincidence because it's just Roman numerals, right? Love songs. The Chinese myth of the immortal white snake. A plague had stricken the city. Oh, it must be quite recent. It must be in China, right? Right. Somebody wants to be a pharmacist, and his wife Bai Zhu Chen produced a recipe to use the rotten herbs which has been given to him as a medicine.
Oh, by the way, Michael, you do know that those Roman numerals were probably the year 2020, right? M equals 1,000.
Yeah.
You have to tell the full story.
Yeah, sorry.
That's okay. I just thought I noticed that just.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
Wait a second.
It's better to have.
Could be the year 2020.
Yeah.
Because they're still around, right? The band Whitesnake? Yeah. I think
Yeah. So then, out of a sudden, a Buddhist monk showed up and warned the owner of the pharmacy that his wife is a demon. And he laughed him away and said, no, my resourceful wife is not a demon. And then the monk told the owner of the pharmacy, Xu Xiang, to serve his wife special wine on the 5th day of the 5th month. I said, oh, interesting, 5, huh? 5 times I will. 5-pointed pentagram. When demons' powers are weakened, which of course this is mythology, everything has been tossed around here in China, huh? My. Yeah. So when he gave that wine to his beloved wife, few short time later, he found a giant white serpent with a bloody forked tongue in the bed. It's the Chinese myth of the immortal white snake. He collapsed, killed by the shock. Yeah, and she shapeshifted into his wife again with having formidable magical powers. The legend of the White Snake is a Chinese legend centered around a romance between a man named Zhu Xiang and a snake spirit named Bai Shuazhen. It has been presented in a number of major Chinese operas. What was the profession of Bruce Lee's father? He was a comedy actor in the Chinese opera. So, therefore, I suggest that this myth also was known to the Lee family. So let's get into this. The legend is now counted as one of China's 4 great folktales, the others being Lady Meng, Jiang, Butterfly Lovers, and the Coward and the Weaver Girl. The original story was a story of good and evil, with the Buddhist monk Fahai setting out to save Chu Chuang's soul from the white snake spirit who was depicted as an evil demon. Over the centuries, however, the legend has evolved from a horror tale to a romance story, with Bai Shuazhen and Zhu Xiang being generally in love with each other, even though their relationship is forbidden by the laws of nature. White Snake, Love Hunter. Ah, you see, it's close to the Whore of Babylon, more closer to the Chinese mythology, but White Snake, it's a mythology animal. Yeah, so, once again, Bruce wore thick horn-rimmed glasses and his ear was pierced to protect him from boy-stealing snake demons. So, she had used her magical powers, that snake spirit, to take on a human form. But she had one more idea to save him. Let's hear it. A herb that could grant longevity and even bring the dead back to life. My. Guarded by the old man of the South Pole. This is for you, Brad. The old man of the South Pole. Who could it be? And it's not very hard for real Christians to figure out who the old man of the South Pole could be. Because the South Pole is the opposition of the North Pole. So, what would you suggest? Who's the old man of the South Pole?
Satan?
Yes. What does he promise in the 3rd chapter of Genesis to Eve? You shall not.
It's pretty much several ones.
You shall not surely
die.
Yeah. Yeah. So, presenting somebody a herb for longevity or to raise somebody from the dead. It's very recent situation out there. Yeah, they can save you with pharmacare.
Yeah, whoever shall save their life shall lose it, and whoever lose themselves for my sake shall find it.
Applause,
That's
applause.
scripture.
If I would have an applause button, I would hit it, but I don't have an applause button at the moment.
Okay, all right.
This happened in the forbidden peaks of the Kunlun Mountains. Maybe there's 2 peaks that would be twin peaks then. Because that snake has been rescued by Xu Xian in past life. When she was a snake, then he said that no, don't spare the life, don't kill that snake. And that's old mythology. And the old man, speaking of Satan, permitted her to leave the mountain with the immortal herb. So, that's it for this session. That is Poison Part 2 for 50 years later. The deep research for the life and death of Mr. Legion Fan or Bruce Lee. These are now all the theories of murder and suicide and criminal activities that I can come up with. And in the next session we will go into behind the curtain, what's going on behind the scenes, behind the agenda, and that's much more interesting than all the stuff that we have talked about this. Thanks for having me. Looking forward to next session, handing it over to my beloved brother Brett to close the session down. Marinette.
Thanks, Michael. Yeah, wow, what a huge amount of data that is to go through to find this coincidence, huh? Man, it's a strange world, isn't it? Yeah, no wonder, it says in scripture that God is not of this world, that Jesus not of this world. This world is so corrupt. Of course, when you know the book of let's see, Old Covenant, the prophetic book of Daniel. There's only 4 kingdoms, and Babylon is the first, the head of gold. So many interesting facts you bring up, Michael, especially the fact that this serpentine image was on the gate of Ishtar in Babylon. Very important. Very, very important. And here we are in the Jesuitical poison script that you put together for us. And we're looking at the very end here. And that's very interesting way of looking at the death of Bruce Lee. So, let's sum it up in the next session then, Michael. I think that we've been equipped with a lot of truth here. Thank you for that, and looking forward to your next presentation, God willing. We get there and in the YouTube channel. And I don't know what day this will be uploaded, but probably will be months down the line, Michael. Thank you again for the work. Thank you, listeners, for all of your attention, and hopefully we will catch you in the next session and into the future, God willing. Maranatha.